Don't forget, if you have anything to say, you can press these buttons to turn them green to talk and turn them off again when you're not talking. Hey, I was actually just waiting for Anna Christina and Mary to join via Zoom. So there they are. The meeting was called to order at 6:31 p.m. With a quorum present.
Hello.
And hi. Can you hear us? I should be muted. But the reception room is muted. We don't want the reception room to be muted.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes. Sorry, I apologize for being late. I had to pick up my dog's remains, so.
Okay, meeting called to order at 6:31 p.m. or let's say 6:33 p.m. The first agenda item is the July 22nd minutes. I did not print them out, but
I'm sorry, I hear like two voices speaking. Oh, there we go. Now it went away, sorry.
There's a side conversation happening as somebody's trying to log into Wi-Fi.
Oh, I see, all right.
I guess the microphone is very sensitive.
Does this one also pick stuff up?
That's talking to the Zoom. So that listens to, that's how Anna Christina and Mary hear. The microphones are how LTC hears. LTC is also logged on to the Zoom, so they also hear what the Zoom hears. So does anybody have any edits? I think nobody here had any edits, but I just want to check and see. Oh, yes.
I just had one edit. This is a simple edit, but it's under item 4 on page 5. It says Righteous Lollapalooza, and I think it was supposed to be Renters Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
Nice catch.
Renters. Renters.
Thank you. Got it. I hope it is also righteous, but renters is more to the point. Are there any other corrections or edits? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of July 22nd with the edit of Renters Lollapalooza instead of Righteous Lollapalooza? Chair motions. Do I have a second? So actually, I cannot tell who people are. Okay, you're masked totally. I'm face blind. I'm sorry. Okay, Carolyn seconds. All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Okay. Was that unanimous? I didn't actually see if the Zoom people can even hear me.
Zoom people? Hello?
Yes?
Did you vote?
No, I'm not sure if I could vote yet. Am I officially a member of that? Then I vote aye.
Thank you. Yes, you can.
Oh, that's a good thing to mention before we move on to the next agenda item. We do have technically 3 new members. That's Rin and Anna Christina and Mary. They were all voted on in the city council meeting and affirmed. So I'm sorry to skip over that announcement with all the technical figures. That is very important, and I'm glad that everybody's joining. So everybody can vote. Yeah. Your term is expired, Greg. That's okay. You can still vote. We'll just make sure that you're on the agenda for the city council before the next meeting. The second agenda item is a guest presentation from Big Belly Solar. I think there was a miscommunication. I misunderstood what month it was. So that person actually will be coming in September. So there, I just need a motion to continue that agenda item until September so the guest speaker can actually speak.
Motion to continue.
Did I get a second? Cormac? All in favor? All opposed? Abstain? Okay. That'll be continued to the September meeting. The next agenda item, I've started putting these into continued business, like old business and new business. So we'll have the continuing business first. And the first item there is priorities and action plan for the Lowell Sustainability Council.
Actually, I see that it's member Carolyn McCarthy. Would you like to start? Well, this is a joint concern for all of us to establish priorities and an action plan for the council. I have some ideas that I'd like to express, but first I just want to remind people why we're here, just in case anyone forgot. In 2021, the thinnest layer of ice was found in the Arctic ever. We had 1 year of rainfall fall in 72 hours in China. The Amazon is no longer, or approaching no longer, being a carbon sink. The Arctic is a net absorber as opposed to a net emitter. It has changed from a net absorber, to a net emitter of carbon dioxide. We achieved 121 degrees Fahrenheit in Western Canada. And on the positive side, we have the infrastructure bill, which creates and funds clean energy jobs, recently passed. And I understand that 1 job in fossil fuels is equal to 2 to 3 jobs in clean energy in terms of production and dollar value. So that's the good news. So there is some good news. And to move on, I think this whole conversation about priorities and actions started with some questioning and some discussion last month. One of the things that came out of that for me was that we really need to think about, in my view anyway, a structure for how we approach the ideas that we do take on. So yes, we need to prioritize and organize the different goals that we have as a council, but before we do that, I think we should establish and document some work steps to get us there. In other words, have a blueprint, a structure for how we take on an idea at the outset and ultimately execute it with an action at the conclusion. I'd like people to refer to, and Chris, if you could pull this up on the screen, the idea to execution checklist. This is a document that Cormac put together. Cormac and I worked on this a while ago, and it's really just an 8-step blueprint. It's I've put a little copy in your materials for today. It starts with an idea inception. So you know, if we have an idea like energy efficiency or community choice aggregation or solar on the high school, you know, that's an idea. And the inception is the creation of that idea. And I would submit that we then get the council as a body to approve, to investigate that particular idea. So if Mary brings the idea of energy efficiency to the table, for example, we might have too many things going on this month, and we might say, well, let's wait until next month and talk about that then. But we could alternatively say, look, we really need to get our hands around energy efficiency and take it on and agree and approve to investigate as step 2. The next step, incredibly important, would be to assign a lead person to that particular idea. In this case, the example of energy efficiency, that person might be Mary. It might be someone else. But the idea is that we get a person committed to championing that particular idea. The next step could involve a subcommittee. It could involve just one person. It could involve the entire committee, but we would research and fact-find. We would then present to the council at a subsequent meeting, and we would have discussions of pros and cons. We would then do a review and a vote, perhaps. You know, this process isn't necessarily a one-stop shop. We could take months to decide on a particular item. But in the structure of this, this organized plan, we would review and ultimately vote on an outcome, some type of execution step. And then we would file with the clerk's office in the case of an action, or we would write a letter in the case of a letter, and we would present that perhaps at a city council meeting. So that's kind of the process. I wanted to hear what your thoughts are about it. I think that we need something a little more rigorous than the system that we've been using, which hasn't been well-defined. And I present this as a starting point. I'd like some discussion about it.
Yeah, and thanks for going over that, Jay. I think for something like this, you know, it would be really good if we could kind of keep an eye on sort of like a softball, you know, idea that we could kind of run through this really quickly. You know, in the future, you know, whatever the idea is, but just to kind of run through this quickly just so that we can see it actually take shape. So like not a huge project, but maybe a really small project that we could actually, you know, do some stuff and then bring it to the city council and see something happen with it. Because I expect, you know, things to potentially change, but it'd be good to kind of just run through it at one point. So maybe just keep that in mind. If anybody has any of those ideas, to kind of bring that to the council meetings. I think a short thing would be the best thing that we could do.
This is,
Anna, Christina, I see you have your hand up. You can go ahead and speak as if you were here.
I guess I just have a question as to number 6, discussion of pros and cons. Is this, I feel like that should almost be before the presentation, and then why does it say review vote? Do we vote amongst ourselves and then do the presentation to LSC or LCS, whatever? Or how does that work? Like step number 5 seems like it should be further down. We should already have been gathered together
Yeah.
before we do the presentation.
Yeah. So just really quickly, so.
Like should the subcommittee, have their discussion
Yeah, so it would
before
be,
we,
yeah, so it would be like an idea, so the idea inception would be, you know, a small task of, you know, we want to, you know, hypothetically, we want to clean up, you know, this, you know, this park or something, and we all agree to, you know, that idea gets brought to the council meeting, the city, or the LSC meeting, and then we say, yes, that's a good idea, and then a lead person gets appointed to kind of take that on. So it's not this isn't something that at this point, you know, it might only be, you know, a quarter or a half of the LSC that's working on it, and then there would be work that would be done to, you know, understand the scope of it, and you know, a deeper understanding, you know, the actual kind of, you know, a bit of the actual work, and then that would then get presented by the lead person or the group that was, you know, working on it to the Sustainability Council to then decide if we want to really, you know, take on this task, and so at that point, we would then review and vote on, say, yes or no, we're going to take this on. And then there would be the actual cleaning up of the park, hypothetically, and then there would be the presentation to the city council.
okay, I see. I just wanted to know
yeah.
if within the subcommittee that's doing the work, if the discussion is taking place on there before they get to that presentation to the body as a whole. So That sounds reasonable.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I was just kind of pushing for like the, you know, something small just to kind of go through this so we can kind of get a win. So, because a lot of the things that, you know, the major tasks that we go after are really, you know, big, long projects. And so that was just my point on that.
If I could add a little bit to what Cormac said, I think you could entitle number 5, draft presentation to the LSC, and then you could have the discussion stay as point number 6, and then there could be a final presentation to the LSC. I see this as an iterative process where there could be some a feedback loop required to get to the finish line.
This is Carolyn. I think this is a great plan for a process. It sounds like, just looking at our last meeting, we reviewed the charge and we reviewed how we got to the current structure of our meetings, which was in reaction to the experience of a previous council, which was there's too much discussion and not enough work, and now we're like too much work in the subcommittees, not enough discussion. So this sounds like a great plan to move forward, and I am wondering, like you said, Jay, about how can we create the structure so that we can pursue the things that we want in this softball manner to keep nimble with what's going on projects that we find we can actually make a change in. Would this mean that for idea inception, for example, that would require if someone had an idea, we would need to leave space in our agenda in new business for that? And then does this also mean like we will have temporary subcommittees that will be doing that work in terms of, again, the structure? And then in terms of the presentation to LSC, I'm just wondering how we get that into our agenda time working together.
So,
Go ahead.
so generally speaking, if a member, it could happen one of two ways. It could be something like last month, where in one agenda item, somebody brings up, oh, we should be talking about energy efficiency for renters. And then everybody agrees it'll be on the agenda, the next item. It could also happen in the new business item. The other way is really if a member has an item, they can bring it to the chair or to me or to both of us, ideally, to just be put on the next agenda as its own item. That way it kind of gets its due shake to have an initial conversation about, and also members of the public who might be interested in that item can come and, you know, speak in favor or against it as well.
I just wanted to clarify, we had some discussion last time about sort of what our role is, like what are we able to do, what's our main purpose. It sounded to me like there were two things. One, the primary charge is that we're making, the final product is that we're making a recommendation to the city, something that we think they should adopt, a direction they should go maybe with a contract with community choice aggregation, or maybe a new policy, possibly a new law, possibly something like that. And the other thing is, I think I heard this correctly, that we can be involved in applying for grants. So I see two ways that we can help the city. And I just wanted to make sure I understood that, because when I look at number 8, it looks like execution is to the city, like our final product is always going to be either a letter, or probably a letter and a presentation to the council, maybe just a letter, but possibly both. Or our final product is going to be a grant application. Now, am I understanding? Okay, that makes sense.
Cormac did bring up kind of another role that's not in the charge, but has been typically taken on by the Lowell Sustainability Council, which is more volunteering. Arguably, the Sustainability Summit is not a letter, it's not a grant, but it is an activity that people do under the aegis of communication and so forth. And so in that case, the vote might be to undertake a volunteer activity rather than to write a grant or send a recommendation to the city council.
So when Cormac mentioned park cleanup, yeah, that would be something we could like maybe all organize together as a group and execute it. Okay. Just making sure. I like this, Gay. I really like this. I think all 8 steps, they look good to me. I think, you come up with an idea and it's, it can be very quick. It's not really going to take up a lot of time. And we quickly decide, is this something we want to investigate? If it's something very small, I envision just a single person maybe could investigate it and try to figure out what it's going to involve. And then do the research and the fact-finding and then present it, get on the agenda for the next meeting, present it to the group kind of quickly, talk about the pros and cons, vote whether we want to go ahead with it, and then execute it. I think these steps look good.
I would just quickly add, I think part of our charge too is to serve as some sort of forum for people who have an idea that aren't part of the council to sort of bring an idea to the council, make a presentation. That's what we've done in the past, and a lot of good things have come from that too.
Yeah, I think the overall main goal is just to kind of, put us all sort of on equal grounds of like this, if one person wanted to, cared about something, that, we would all just kind of know what the path was forward. And so, when it gets brought up at the meeting, we can be like, this is where we are in the process, so.
One quick thing, Carolyn, you also mentioned subcommittee, or one of you mentioned subcommittee formation, kind of that lead person. And you can, just to remind the council, especially those new members, a subcommittee of like 3 people does not need to have an open meeting law because they aren't a quorum. They couldn't theoretically vote on anything. But if it's 5 people involved or more, at this point, that is a quorum, and so it would need to be handled under open meeting law, which is fine. It just means that it would be in a more formal setting like this. We'd have to give 2 days notice, etc. I have asked to. There was a moment where there were literally 4 subcommittee meetings a month. That was a little much to handle, but one subcommittee meeting a month or one every couple of months, very easy, very understandable. So I just wanted to put that out there as well for the new members.
And just to add, I think that the idea of this was also that this would be more of like very, very temporary subcommittees kind of things, like just as a means to an end. So it wouldn't be like something that we would put on our agenda, going forward.
Well, I think it's relative to the scale and the scope of the idea. If the idea is to electrify the city of Lowell and make sure that we don't have any oil burners and eliminate gas appliances from all the houses, we might need some time to work through a more long-range problem like that. So I think that subcommittees are part of the equation if it's big enough scale, and I think that a time element could be longer depending on the scale. I think there's an awful lot of items that we can dispense with and get through quickly, but there's also going to be those occasional items that we may want to just grind through for a little bit. Is there any other discussion? Well, I would like to amend the document to add a 9th point. So I would like to add a number 5 draft presentation to the LSC. Number 6 would stay as discussion of pros and cons. That would be at either a subcommittee or a full committee meeting. And then adding in number 7, final presentation to the LSC. And then number 8 becomes review and vote. Number 9 becomes execution to city, execution period. I don't know that it necessarily is to the city council. That's a special case, I think. Does that make sense to people?
What's the purpose of the second presentation to the council? Is it to refine it in advance of presenting it to the city council?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, and it wouldn't always be necessary. You don't always need to take 2 swings to fell a tree.
Right.
But necessarily, we may want to figure a draft presentation. If we skip the draft and go right to final, that's great.
Okay.
Right, so maybe we could also just add on to the end of that, just optional, just so that it's,
Okay?
you know, yeah, just because, you know, some of the things, ideally, some of the things should be like quick to run through and just to try and not add too many check boxes to the list.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I just have a quick question. When I was reviewing last month's notes, I think Cormac, you had said that perhaps we could do 2 subcommittee share-outs in a meeting. I wonder if we've come to an agreement about, will we be talking about subcommittee? Well, first of all, are any of the subcommittees that we've been working in going to be dissolved in order to pursue new things? Like, I imagine that energy efficiency might become a new subcommittee and task. Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have clarity around that. Which committees do we feel should still be active for long-term, like goal achievement? And then do we have an agreement around how to fit them into our monthly agendas so as to not take up too much report back time, which is one concern.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that one thing we could probably do is we could modify subcommittees to either say be considered active or inactive. So, for instance, the electric buses or electric vehicles in the city. Like, yes, it matters, but there's currently the electric buses, like, there's nothing that we can actually do at this moment. So we can kind of bring it back to being active once there is movement on it.
What I might suggest is, rather than keeping a large list of active and inactive subcommittees, I mean, maybe that makes sense, but also the idea of, let's take electric buses for an example. Cormac says, electric buses, that's important. The LSC, let's investigate it. Cormac investigates it. He has some meetings with LRTA. He presents and says, actually, there's nothing we can do about it because the LRTA already bought some buses and there's nothing else we can do. And the LSC all agrees to close the topic, and now that subcommittee is gone. But let's say Cormac continues looking out and he says, hey, now is a good time to move. He can bring that up again and it would go through that same idea inception process again.
I have an idea of how about we reserve the last 3 minutes of every meeting to discuss the topics or subcommittees that are going to be part of the next agenda. So people are prepared, know what's coming up, if their subcommittee is designated to talk, and that could always be like amended if something pops up in the middle of the month.
So you're saying just like hey, next week we're going to be doing this? Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. I was worried when you said 3 minutes.
It could be like 1 minute of
No,
like, all
no,
right, you're up
no.
the next
No,
meeting.
no, just, I wasn't sure if it was discussion of subcommittee, so I was like. Okay.
If we,
I just have a quick question also. I don't wanna go off on a tangent, but, you were talking about electric bus committee. Is that a current subcommittee?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Just as a quick intro to it, we looked into it 2 years ago, maybe. And we were talking with the LRTA, and currently right now, they are now, the LRTA along with a bunch of other transit authorities are having consultants give them a roadmap for
As they replace their fleet.
how it would be implemented, cost, this and that, and they're planning on doing a group buy with all of the other RTAs in the regional area, and roughly, we should expect, like 5 or 6 electric buses by, it's either 2024 or 2025.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Have we touched on this before, but we should probably think about like what the scope and focus is of each committee. I'm thinking like, we have a certain expertise here. We don't need to do, I don't know, your park cleanup was just an example, but we don't need to do park cleanup. There's a million organizations that do that.
Those totally.
Right, okay. So we should focus on things that we have expertise in.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, so, things that we can bring to the table, like the electric buses, like, community aggregation, very specialized things.
Yeah, and I think also things that where we could see, not that it has to be this, but we could see value in bringing up to the city council for the city council to make moves on. Because I think it's kind of like, we kind of have the city council's ears to some degree, and that we want to bring something forward and say, hey, look, we did all this, digging, and, there's, this thing going on, and, this is a plan that seems reasonable, does anybody want to put their stamp of approval on it and, take it on, and actually, we can help you through it. An example, there's a wide breadth of things, but, yeah. If you can think of a better example for a quick thing that we could do. Park cleanup is a nice thing, obviously, like.
So speaking of quick things, I think that I'd like to, we don't have much time left for this agenda item, and I'd like to get to the conversation about what other communities are doing. That was an important piece of fact-finding and research that I started just to kind of fill out what we could do if we wanted to, and thank you, Lynn, for adding on to that. So if we can, I'd like to have a vote on the ideas to execution list as amended in the meeting tonight, and see if we could move forward with that as a document.
I'll move to accept that as a document as amended.
Okay, great. I would second that.
Okay, so, oh wait, well,
We need to see if there's any discussion.
yeah. The motion by Michaela, seconded by Jay, is to accept the idea to execution checklist as a policy of the LSC, as amended.
Yes.
As a policy.
Policy document.
Just quickly, we did vote on that logo, right?
Yes. For God's sake, yes.
It's wonderful.
I'll talk to you about that logo after the meeting is over.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Sorry, so to accept that as a policy document of the LSC as amended, all in favor?
Is there any
Oh,
discussion?
any discussion?
Oh,
Don't we need to ask for discussion?
Yes, that is what is Robert's Rules of Order. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? All abstain? Unanimous.
Nice. All right, the next order.
One thing I'd like to do is for things that don't have a natural end is also to vote to close this item so it's not continued to the next meeting really quick. And that way maybe we can kind of have a better track of the meeting. So very quickly, a motion to close this item. Michaela, seconded by Jay. All in favor? Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, now that this item is closed and completed. The next item is community choice aggregation.
No, we didn't, we talked about, I'm sorry if I misunderstood you. We need to talk a little bit about the research into the other communities, what the other communities are doing. That's the other slide that I asked to.
Oh, okay. So we aren't closing that agenda item then, although you voted to close it.
Could I just
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
add something? Because, so a part of the conversation last week that was within this, last month, that was within this agenda item was that we would look into the S9 bill and the sustainable plan and our master plans and things like that. And I wonder, and look into what other communities are doing. So I'm wondering, it sounds like for the most part, we've discussed how we want to, go about our meetings. And now it seems like, I think this is the question that I was getting at in terms of the structure of our meetings. If we want to discuss these new ideas about, where does that fit in, I guess?
And the way I looked at the priorities and action items was that it was a sort of a self-discovery path for us to follow and determine based on the state energy plan, based on the other community plans that they're doing, and based on, what was the other thing? The master plan, the city's master plan, how we could explore ideas. I mean, now that we know how to work with ideas, let's find a way to mine those ideas and cultivate a fertile crop of good ideas that we can work with and execute, and obviously prioritize. So one way to do that is to look at what other communities are doing. And I took if we could put that slide up, Chris, I took there's another copy here if anybody wants to look at it. I took a look at the state information that, I'm sorry, that's so small, that Greg gave to us, and I looked at some of the goals and initiatives in the roadmap bill that the state put together. And then so I established some goals, some initiatives, greenhouse gas emissions with community choice aggregation, environmental justice law, opt-in stretch code, increasing demand for renewable energy, EVs, solar, et cetera, and looked at the documents that I had sent around for Arlington, Somerville, and Cambridge, as well as my knowledge of Lowell, and started to fill in some of the blanks. So, where does Lowell stand relative to the state? The state wants to be 100% net zero by 2050. Well, Lowell's goal is aggressively higher than that. We want to be 100% renewable by 2035. I don't know how we're going to get there with that. Well, that's a different discussion. Somerville's goal is 100% carbon neutral, and they're all different terms, and they all have different meanings. And I don't want to get into the nuts. I don't want to get into the weeds of that right now. But Somerville wants to be 100% carbon neutral by 2050. Arlington wants to be 100% net zero by 2050. Cambridge wants an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas by 2050. So we can look at the other communities in an area, any initiative that we want, and we can do the research fairly easily to see how we stack up against these other communities. And I think to Chris's point, Chris and I were talking about this, it probably makes sense for us to compare ourselves also to the Chelmsfords and the Westfords and the Billricas of the world. But they don't have climate plans like Arlington, Cambridge, and Somerville. So that's kind of the sort of methodology I brought to this exercise, and I'd like some discussion about, what do we think, and how can this help us, and how does this get us to a point of better decision-making?
Yeah, I would just say that this is probably a good starting point for an idea of doing the comparison and presenting something to the city council as to see the trajectory, and because I'm not sure that there's that many city council members that understand this or have this information. No, but I would imagine that none of them do. Just as far as for something for teaching the council, if this is like the very top level of like, what we want to get out of the city council as far as like them committing to something, them competing with the other cities to try and, you know, be able to brag about being the most, you know, impressive city out there. So, like, this could be an idea to flesh out and create a presentation for the city council. It's just, to throw that out there.
Okay, I agree.
And something that might not take super long to do, potentially. You know, it's just kind of putting the numbers together and then creating presentation. You know? And bringing up the 2035 thing that they probably are like, whoa, we said what? You know, because I think, you know, it'd be better for them to, you know, agree to something and actually mean it versus have something there and be like, well, that was said a while ago. Clearly we can't do that. Massachusetts is saying this, you know.
I think it would also be really helpful for us. I mean, and for me as a new member, as I was doing some of these comparisons, I thought, okay, well, this is what Cambridge is doing. Let me look at what Lowell's doing. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I did some of like the MVP stuff, the MVP grants. And I saw, oh, we already got one for this, and what are we doing with it? And then I look at the Lowell website, and it's pretty cool. I mean, there's like a lot of stuff that's going on that's fantastic that I just didn't even know about. And, you know, I remember the plastic bag ban. I remember like all these things. It would be great to sort of have it all in one place. Like, why don't we have a bragging document? We're doing all this, you know, we're doing the same cool stuff. I would love to know just what have we done, so I need to know, okay, I can compare apples to apples and say, we didn't do this, or we haven't done this. And then we can sort of like pinpoint and say, okay, well, what, we need to address this area. What are we doing here? And I know energy is like really, is big, big, big. It's gonna like make the biggest change. But there's a lot of other little stuff too.
Doesn't Lowell have a document already that shows its, like, wasn't there some sort of report that I think Catherine was doing to show progress? Does that still exist somewhere?
Yeah, she has a PowerPoint that talks about a number of bragging points that Lowell can offer on the energy side.
So maybe we can use that, if we could request that, maybe from Catherine, the most updated one that she has, or someone who's tasked with doing that for the city, and we can use that to kind of fill this information in and add more if we want to.
And as well as, that would be a really great thing if we could have that be the focal point of when you go to the Sustainability Council webpage kind of thing. Like, that's what people look at, not just, you know, meeting minutes. You know, they're like, this is the main focal point kind of thing.
Nice
So it's a,
big button.
Yeah, and then like you were saying, and then at the end of that whole spiel, you say, oh, and by the way, this S9 bill is favoring communities like ours, so we should be getting disproportionately more money than Somerville and Cambridge kind of thing. So just, you know, kind of like providing that motivation of like, hey, look at all the stuff that we've done, and by the way, we're gonna get a boatload more money, so you guys should get excited, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I keep thinking like, oh, this would be a good idea, and then I look it up and I realize like, oh, we've already done this. Like, I need to know what we've done so I can figure out what should I put my energy in.
The city's just starting to update their master plan, and that's gonna take probably a couple of years. But we might be able to help with that, and along the way, develop some understanding of some of those talking points.
yeah, so I can, I'll ask Catherine for the presentation. I believe the most up-to-date one is the one that she shared a few months ago. So I can ask her for that presentation to send to you. I might actually have it. And then, oh, the website update. The template for the main page has to be pretty standardized across all of the boards and commissions. As I've mentioned before, there can be tabs, and then the pages behind those tabs can be whatever you like, but I just need the information.
I think it would be also good to put the Sustainable Lowell 2025 link on there.
Yeah.
So is this document open and editable to members? Cool. I'll try to fill in the CCA stuff that other towns are doing as a benchmark.
Yes, everyone's been shared to this document, and everyone's welcome and encouraged to, the only question I have is, are people patient with long horizontal spreadsheets? Because it's gonna get a lot wider, but I don't see any way around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just kind of need to start with something, put the stuff in, and then we can move it around if we need to later on.
We can turn it 90 degrees, so we're only gonna have so many municipalities, right? So if we limit the number of columns, but we have, more
Oh.
rows.
That works too.
Right, then it becomes a very long document, but yeah, that might be better.
I would encourage, if you're doing comp cities, to look at the other gateway cities as well. New Bedford, Lawrence, Springfield, good one.
Okay, no thanks. I really just wanted to present this idea and see if there was traction, because it's gonna take some investment from the body, and it only works if we're all interested in it. So I need to know if people feel like this is worthy of putting some time into on an occasional basis. It's a great way to learn about, as you said, Candace, you learn about your own city by seeing what other cities are doing. So it's kind of cool that way, I think. But that's my feeling. How do people want to use this?
Yes. Yeah, it's a great idea.
So I think we might be at step 2.
Yeah. Sounds good.
How do the people on Zoom feel about it? If there's any comments.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea, and I also think, which I started doing earlier and I did not follow up, I have to do more work, but I went also on the Lowell government website just to see what projects are happening, because I think we could even, I think that would be good to say, if you're planning all these projects, I'm not sure how many are future projects and how many are ongoing. I didn't understand that completely. But we can go and tell them various construction methods that they could be using that are sustainable and resilient as well.
That's a great
I don't
point,
know.
Mary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helpful because it identifies what is in the law and what we need to get to the finish line.
That's a good working title.
There's many blank boxes here. Who is going to fill them in?
We are.
So a person will arrange filling them in and such.
We all have access, so I think the way it works is, it's like Wikipedia, don't go putting anything up there that's not true, but if you have something to contribute, fill in a box.
And go ahead, Mary.
I think some of these issues are going to be issues of discussion. I think that the way different cities and the state itself got to the next generation climate bill is through negotiations. And so I am not so sure about, we may put in something, I may put in something in the EJ law that that somebody else doesn't think it can work in law. So I don't know how that will fit in, because it's not, each city has to negotiate through what works for that specific city. So I don't think, or maybe I'm not understanding the framework, because I think we need to have conversations on what will work for law in the opt-in stretch code, yes or no. So I may be a yes, somebody else in the same Lower Sustainable Council may be a no. How does that fit in there?
So is the plan to use to fill in what's missing basically here, and then to return as a council to discuss how we may want to use, look to these other initiatives or projects and bring them to Lowell and have discussion around that? And then that would be the first idea, and then we'd go into working groups discussing with how it might look for Lowell. Is that kind of the idea of how we want to work with this document?
Yes, and I think it's not a perfect document, and we are not a perfect body. So we're not going to fill in every box necessarily, and they're not all going to be filled in absolutely accurately and correctly. We're going to do our very best to populate a working document that has value. And I think that we can, along the way, develop a feeling for ideas that are important to Lowell that we can put out as topics for our new system. And whether it's EV or EJ or CCA, whatever the item is, somebody may passionately discover that this is something that they really want to work on really badly, and we want to champion that.
And I think the way that this document is working is we're filling in what other towns and cities currently have in their climate action plans. And if it's not in their climate action plans, but we know that they're doing it, like I drove by Newton and saw that they had a bunch of, their whole fleet was EVs. So you could, or a news article, you can say this is proof that this town is doing this and just link it. But it's what they're actually doing now.
That's
Just,
how. Did you want to go ahead?
Well, I just had a quick housekeeping. Is this particular matrix in the Google Docs? Or where can we find this matrix that you're looking at, the comparison of action plans?
So I better make sure that the new members are shared to this, but this is the Google document. This one happens to be in the folder, I don't know how to find that out. Administrative? Work plan? No.
Well, you should be able to just search the word
Yeah.
comparison, and I guess that'd probably be the easiest.
That's what we did earlier tonight.
Yeah.
Oops. But yeah, I will make sure that all the new members are shared to this after this meeting.
Just following up on Mary's comment, you were saying that were you saying that there might be, so if one person fills in one of the boxes like the opt-in stretch code, saying that we want to do, this is what we want to be doing, that there might be discussion where some people may feel differently about that plan of action based off of where the city's circumstances, or was I misinterpreting that? Because I think
Yeah.
my understanding was just that it was, we would just be putting in what currently exists as far as what has been decided by the city, not necessarily our wishes.
And I just wanted to add one thing. I think it would be really helpful if we could, in the table, specify, distinguish between, okay, this is state law, this is a city ordinance, this is an aspirational goal of the state, this is an aspirational, just so we can get a sense of, okay, this is law, and then this is what we'd like to do, this is our goal. Because that would just really help me if I can see, like, okay, well, this is the law, and then this is what we'd like to do to sort of go above it, and this is what we need. And then I can figure out, okay, comparing apples to apples, like, what do we have missing? Like, what's a huge, I don't imagine there are gonna be any huge gaps, but I imagine that there's gonna be room where we can grow. And that, I think that'll be really helpful to us. Not only just going forward to identify what projects we wanna work on, but also, I consider this a project.
Right.
Like, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like this is, I think you said earlier, Cormac, like, this is one of the things. I feel like this is one of the things.
Jay, I guess, got some extra credit because he did it ahead of time.
Well, it's a good thing I did, because we're out of time now. So, yeah, let's try to wrap up, though.
Yeah, Mary, we're sorry, we're just waiting. I think that we didn't let you go, so you have the floor.
Who, me?
Yes.
I mean, someone said that that there may not be huge differences. You will be surprised that there are very huge. The differences are major across the Commonwealth. I happen to work at the state level, do a lot of work with advocates, and even writing of the bill. So there are huge differences, and Lowell is one of the cities that is pretty behind. So that's the only comment I wanted to make.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all probably agree with that. But so yeah, and so it'll be good to see this whole spreadsheet kind of get filled out and just see how far behind we are and put it in plain sight. And I think that would be hugely valuable for our city council to present that information to. We said 2035, but this is realistically where we are, and so we don't want to be liars.
Okay, I move that we continue to the next item. I'd like to know what the thoughts are for closing this item out.
I would say to just kind of keep continuing it and look back at it the next meeting, and hopefully it's more filled out, and then just kind of see where we land compared to other cities and compared to the state law.
Yeah, and maybe we could just review at the meeting the added ones, just as like quick overview of, these things got added. Maybe spend 3 minutes.
And just because this discussion is still kind of a part of the priorities and action plan, I wonder if, I think it would be a good idea to have a timekeeper in our meetings. Like right now, we just spoke, which is great, for an hour, and we have a half hour left to cover these next pieces. And so, I know we can't expect you, Chris, to be taking notes, timekeeping, to all of these things. So just for keeping things structured and moving along.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I don't do that is technically there's no end time. Obviously, people want to get out of here, but there's no law that says we have to end at 8.
Okay.
I don't think I would have many brain cells after 8 to contribute meaningfully, but there is no law that says it has to be a 90-minute meeting. Very quickly, because I'll be drafting the next agenda. This does not seem like, it seems like we did close out the priorities and action plan. Like, how is VLSC going to operate? And this seems like its own thing. comparison spreadsheet, you know, is that a good enough name for this agenda item? City comparison spreadsheet. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so Jay and I drafted this letter to bring to the environmental subcommittee meeting of the city council. Just saying that we're in favor of at minimum continuing our 45% renewable content for the community choice aggregation. And what that means is the city negotiates the contract for the next, you know, whatever time that they decided is 1 year, 2 year, 3 years for the supply to be matched with 45% renewable content. And all ratepayers that are currently in the aggregation would be automatically enrolled to that. It adds that we're hoping that they would consider an opt-up to 100% option for ratepayers. And that would kind of make our impact even more strong for those who could afford it. And that's basically it.
I would add only that the subcommittee is meeting sometime in the next couple of months. They told me that they are not under a time crunch, and that this could be decided according to Vesna Noon, the chair, John Drinkwater on the committee. This could be voted on in January, according to what he interpreted from Christine McCall saying. So I was surprised at that, but
I'm surprised at that too, because our current contract ends in December of this year. So,
he addressed that, but seemed to think that I think it begs a conversation with Christine.
okay,
But anyway, I just wanted to add that we will get the executive director from Mass Climate Action Network, who does a lot of work in this area, to attend that meeting. Her name is Sarah Dooling. So we're hoping to coordinate a meeting where she can attend and be part of that subcommittee. So we hope to use the firepower of her experience to help bring home the point that we need to do this 45% additional at a minimum.
yeah, and in the interest, Mary, we had talked a little bit before the meeting about sort of how does equity and environmental justice come into play when it comes to this sort of issue. And what I would say is that the next time around, we could probably make it a little bit more easy for speakers of other languages besides English to interpret these materials. I think they went out in Khmer, and I don't think any other languages besides you have a Google Translate button on the page, which in my opinion is really not sufficient for a city like Lowell. So maybe that could be part of the discussion with the environmental subcommittee. But with that being said, I think it really does make renewable energy accessible to people who would be disproportionately affected by climate change. It negotiates a good rate with the renewable content as opposed to that local mass class 1 RECs, as opposed to a lot of competitive suppliers that are out there that target elderly, low-income ratepayers, kind of claiming to, in a way that greenwashes, quite frankly. You get 100% renewable energy, but they're wind RECs from Texas, and then when you try to cancel your plan, you're hit with all of these exit fees and things that really kind of get people in trouble, that the Attorney General did. They did a study on this too, so I think we talked about it in prior meetings, and it's pretty well known. But anyway, that's another big portion of this. It makes renewable energy accessible to everyone that pays for their electricity in Lowell.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but did you say, or can we have it be in the next contract where the, whoever wins the contract part of it is that they would have to pay for translating the information. Because I think
Yeah.
that the difficulty is that the city's like, where are we taking this money out of our budget?
Yeah.
Like how are we gonna come up with this money? How do we justify it? You know, if it's, I don't know what the cost is of translating something like that. But I think that was the biggest sticking point in the past, was that like, it costs a lot of money to get this translated, and, you know, who's gonna pay for it?
Yeah, that's a great point. The consultant, in this case, Colonial, makes a lot of money on managing this
Right,
aggregation for
right.
us. So we could absolutely have that in the contract,
Right.
that they need to make sure that they get every single notice that's sent out to ratepayers, either translated or very clearly states, this is where you can go to see a direct translation in that language.
Right, right. 'Cause I think that that's probably the easiest way to actually get it to happen. Because I think it was extremely difficult for us to get anything, like for us when we were asking for that the first time around. So
Just as a point of reference, for energy permitting, the new EJ regulations say that you have to have public meetings and documents in any language in the neighborhood that is over 5%. So in Lowell, that's going to be a lot of languages.
sounds like we could use them on staff.
Is there any other further discussion on CCA?
Just had a comment on CCA that I think is worth sharing. What I actually had mentioned to Michaela is that in across the nation, it's become clear that having these CCA agreements, whereas it's a great idea, if you do not leverage energy efficiency opportunities, you you don't really get the value that you should be getting as a city in terms of sustainability, economic, and equity outcomes. So I just wanted to emphasize that's if we really want to get value, we have to leverage energy efficiency in CCA decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree that energy efficiency is the place where improvements you see the most value. The CCA doesn't have a mechanism for sort of, like everyone that's a ratepayer on the CCA still pays into Mass Save. It's not like there's a mechanism in the CCA to collect any sort of adder the way Mass Save does. But I completely agree with you that Lowell needs to leverage its energy efficiency dollars much better than it is.
Well, I think that by having something like, you know, a big number of increased renewable energy content, that in itself is a marketing play to get people to actually pay attention to it, versus it just being, hey, you know, join this thing, it's cheaper than what you're currently paying. People don't really understand their energy bills anyways, versus it being something interesting that the city is doing. And so, yeah.
Could I just ask one question? Last time we met, I got the sense that maybe the city wasn't gonna include these terms, these requirements in the contract, and I can't remember if I had that impression, if it was based on something, or if it was, is
Right.
that the sense that that they were moving away from it in order to get like a better rate or something?
So they give indicative pricing for rates that were below 45% at different tiers, like 5, 10, 15, 25. And then they also gave pricing for national recs, which was completely ridiculous. And we should really stay away from that, as I say, and as we say in this letter. So that's probably where you got that idea. Steve, did you want to say something?
Hi, Mary. My name is Steve Malagotti. I work with the 350 Mass here in Lowell. I was wondering if you could maybe give us some examples of in context of CCA agreements, how do other localities use the CCA agreement to leverage energy efficiency? I mean, in the state of Massachusetts is going to be providing funds for energy efficiency improvements for property owners, but it's not tied to a CCA agreement. So if that's being done elsewhere, how do other localities incorporate energy efficiency schemes into a CCA agreement without it becoming enormously complicated?
So what I'm referencing is the ability for a city to not just be having a CCA agreement alone as the as the only way that they get to this other climate change a goal. So what's happening is that other cities try to let's say, for example, your local energy efficiency context is that your utility company offers an effective and a robust program, and it does all the nice things. Your CCA can play a connecting role where customers are guided to existing government programs, and so that there is a connection in other places where you have a CCA even directly offering a suite of energy efficiency programs. So the push now is to actually not just say, okay, I'm getting this, I'm part of a renewable portfolio, but you have to go deeper if, as a city, you want to get the benefits. We can't just say, okay, we have a CCA program, we're fine. That's really what I meant by leveraging energy efficiency. Yeah.
Mary, if I could, as I understand what you're saying, you need your communities to ask for 45% or 60% or 80% or 100%. That's where the leverage comes in at the percentage of green local class 1 RECs that you're getting. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
But also tie in, while we're talking about energy, while we're talking about renewable energy, also tie in ways that ratepayers in the aggregation can take advantage of existing energy efficiency programs run by the state, which would be awesome. So what we could do is present that connection to Colonial and say, what can you do for us in this sort of, when we're talking about energy efficiency paired with a CCA. And I think there'd be worth something, I think it would be worth bringing up to them, just to kind of put them on the spot and say, other people are doing this, other aggregators are doing this, can you do something like this? But I don't have high hopes for Colonial, I'll just say that. But it might get us thinking about, all right, Colonial can't do this, we should probably think of maybe another consultant the next time around that can do it, or keep our eyes out for other consultants that are doing awesome things like this that help people make energy efficiency improvements.
Is there any other final discussion on CCA?
Just a question. So the vote will be to make the recommendation to the city council. Generally, that would be, we would just then get an agenda item on the next city council meeting with the letter in the agenda packets and a space to talk at the council meeting. Is that the intention? And it sounds like the intention is to talk at a subcommittee meeting. So it could be, we're suggesting that this be brought up at a subcommittee meeting. So I just wanted to check whether that was the intention or if you wanted some other process to happen.
It's my view that the intention is to present to the large, full city council. The fact that there's a subcommittee occurring first doesn't change that for me. How do other people feel?
just to be clear, the subcommittee would not happen first because the subcommittee meeting doesn't sound like it's going to be scheduled anytime soon, and this would go on the next city council agenda.
So if there's a subcommittee meeting, an environmental subcommittee meeting scheduled for September 20-something, I say we bring it to the subcommittee because I feel like it's more of a forum where there's a lot of like open discussion and we can kind of talk about it in detail more, and then hopefully the subcommittee can take it to city council with our help.
Okay, so that's a new process that would be presented to the subcommittee. I don't actually know that there's a. I'd have to talk to the clerk if there's a mechanism for that. Yeah, you could just come as people or as LSC members to the subcommittee meeting, but I'm talking about if you're presenting a formal recommendation.
I think that maybe we might want to, what we could do is we could vote on presenting to at least the subcommittee and the regular city council meeting in the event that the subcommittee one gets, pushed.
Okay.
Right.
Steve?
Subcommittee is scheduled for September 7th.
September 7th. I don't know if Sarah will be able to make that either.
So I'm not able to make that, but can we, Chris, can we vote on presenting this letter to the subcommittee and also presenting it as a formal recommendation to the city council so that we cover all of our bases when the time comes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what I might suggest is I have to look, but it sounds like if the subcommittee meeting's on the 7th, that would happen immediately before the next city council meeting. So you can talk informally and then make the recommendation on the get on the actual agenda for the city council meeting. And you can vote on that if you'd like. I don't think it actually requires. Yeah, you can vote on that. Definitely.
Yeah, and it could even, if like immediately, like the same day, you're saying? So I mean, if that's the case, then, you can just have it as a placeholder. And if you feel like if we feel like it needs to be, brought up at the council meeting, then we can. Otherwise, it can just be a touch and go, like, hey, we brought this up to the subcommittee meeting. We just wanted to let you guys know that roughly this is what's happening. Thank you for listening, kind of thing.
Yeah,
That
it
makes
will be an agenda.
Right,
if you vote
right.
on it, it will be an agenda
Right,
item.
right.
But
it doesn't need to be the whole spiel kind of thing.
yeah, you can decide on how you present.
Yeah, I would move to accept this letter as it's written unless someone has any edits, to submit it to the subcommittee, the environmental subcommittee, and then to the city council as our formal recommendation of the whole sustainability council.
Yep, and who would be the one doing that? You said you're not going to be able to be, you're away?
Well, I think, Jay, you would submit it as chair, right? Yeah. And then I'm not available
If Jay's not
on the
available.
7th.
Or you're not available as well?
No, I think
Okay.
Sarah's not available,
Yeah.
which is really unfortunate.
Okay.
So
So
maybe-
I can say something
Okay.
on you guys' behalf.
Oh, wait a minute, maybe she is. That was one of the dates?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
then-
mean, essentially, we're kind of like, it's a critical time right now that like, we need to kind of get something moving, so that's what, that was my only, inclination to just be like, we need to do that both, because we can't have none,
Yeah, if she's available, then let's do it as soon as we possibly can.
Do we have a time?
I just have another housekeeping question as to, is the letter also in the Google Docs? Because I didn't read it. I don't know if it went out and I just missed it, and I
It-
have to go back through my
it-
emails.
It would have been sent via email. There's also a hard copy here, but I guess that doesn't help you.
I'll go through my emails. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion on the motion?
Hearing none, the next item of business
Well,
is,
do we have to vote?
Great, we have to vote, and I'm sorry, I'm getting the reason why I've been silent is because I'm getting the actual motion language. I had it written down, sorry.
I can try to repeat it.
No, actually, here's a recommendation. So it's to recommend that the Lowell Sustainability Council, to recommend to the city council for the city to continue to include at least 45 additional renewable content sources from AMA Class 1 RECs in its upcoming CC contract renewal, as further explained in the letter, attached as edited, because this was edited after it officially came out, and also to present at the next environmental subcommittee meeting, let's say.
actually, it's the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee.
At the next Technology and Utilities Subcommittee meeting, okay. Any discussion, final discussion on that, now that you know the incredibly long motion name? Oh, which was motioned by Michaela, seconded by Jay. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Abstain? Okay. 9 in favor, 1 abstain. 8 in favor, 1 abstain. And that closes the CCA item. And now it won't be brought up again unless somebody brings it up as a new agenda item. The next item is proposed recommendation, inventory, and mitigation of heat islands.
I presented that item. I am not prepared to speak to it. I do have the document that was prepared. In fact, there's a number of copies, if anyone would like one. I recommend reading through it. It's a really well thought through document. And there's lots of ideas in here that we could end up putting on our list.
When was the offer of?
And when was the offer? That's right.
got a lot of help from the guy behind me.
Yeah.
Did you say a lot of flack?
No, help, I said help. Not help me see. Great.
Yeah, it's a really nice presentation.
I think this could definitely be a subcommittee, which I'm willing to be on.
Same here.
That's a free idea.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none?
Oh, it looks like the audience has discussion.
Yes, well, I really don't want to speak for Win, but as somewhat of a participant in the development of this document, we at 350 Lowell were wondering, actually, we were looking for some guidance from the council as to what next steps
That's why I want to turn this into a subcommittee, because I think we can take it like 3 steps ahead and have a really comprehensive presentation to the city council. But I think there has to be some, like, ask, what are we actually asking them? And I think that needs to be hashed out.
I feel like this would be taken to the city council and then have like the planning department incorporate heat island considerations into their planning and the way that they are thinking about green spaces in the city and ways to absorb the heat islands in places like the Acre and other places in the city. I need to read this more, obviously, but that's what it seems like.
So what I'm hearing is that you'd like this to go to the subcommittee so you can discuss it and see what's in there and so forth before we proceed.
Yes.
Well, we're thinking alike then, but what would you like to see? Do you have an idea of what you would like, what would your perfect thing to happen be?
All right. The nitty-gritty of what we learned is that extreme heat is more of a death threat, more deadly than all the other extreme weather put together. And in the MVP document, Municipal Vulnerability Plan that Lowell put together, reams of information is put out about the concerns of floods. A lot of concern about floods, which makes sense. We have 2 rivers, we have canals, and we have brooks. And mitigation for those and adaptation is rated high in their priority list. But the extreme heat is not paid much attention to. And the attention that it is paid to and the priority it's given is typically medium priority. And there's two parts to this problem. One is the mitigation, which basically means building trees and making green space. And the other one that is more, which concerns me more, is the fact that we only have 1 cooling shelter in town. And that is something that needs to be addressed sooner than later.
I mean, just looking at this document, I feel like you could use this to apply for grants, like just this. Like, I feel like,
Sorry, everyone.
Oh.
Thanks.
sorry. Yeah, and I feel like those grants would be available for the city to use in planning and setting up other cooling shelters. I mean, we already had to use one, when was it, like, a couple weeks ago? And today, well, yeah, there you go. So, how do we do that? Could we send this to the energy manager
Well,
and?
probably what would be best is for everyone to read it, to get on the same page. Because it's in some ways, a pretty dense document.
Well, along those lines, I think the subcommittee route is a good way to go. It doesn't need to be this long, protracted subcommittee investigation, but enough time for people to absorb and reflect and come up with some ideas, perhaps.
Is there a soft copy?
Yes. She's asking if there's a soft copy.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
a link to it.
Yeah.
We can, are you in charge of sending out emails, or you, Jay?
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay. I'll send you a link
Very
to this
definitive.
document. So we'll get you
Okay.
a link, Mary.
Thanks.
So just kind of as a preview of how this would go, to my understanding, is that a subcommittee, which maybe is decided right now, who wants to like actually meet offline in between meetings, unless there's like 6 people, in which case there would be a subcommittee meeting. But if it's a smaller number, you can just meet at a coffee shop, whatever. You can discuss, figure out what type of recommendations you want to make, and then when you are ready, just ask for it to be on the agenda again, and it'll be put on the agenda as new business.
Should we put this on the next meeting's agenda? I think so, once we've all had a chance to read it.
I would move that we put an agenda item on for September for the continuation of the Heat Island conversation.
Okay, we can continue the item instead. Is there going to be a subcommittee or a group that kind of takes this on and makes sort of recommendations like, yeah, we should apply for a grant, or yeah, we should send it to city council? Who would be on that?
So it looks like Jay, you, and Greg wanted to be on a subcommittee. I would too, but I don't think we should meet until after the next meeting of this, because we need time to process alone what we saw or read.
Okay.
I already have questions, so I can contact you directly?
Yeah.
Okay. Not questions like, just things to discuss.
Oh, I just wanted to say too that, thank you, Mary, for asking for the soft link, because there is an actual link in there that'll bring you to an interactive map. And we took snapshots, or actually Stephen took snapshots of some of the interactive map and put it in the back. But the interactive map is really fun.
Wynn, are you basically, would you be the, let's say, lead chair, whatever, of this subcommittee?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll put your name under there. I think there was a motion basically to continue by the chair. Do I have a second for that? Carolyn? Any discussion on continuing this to next month? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? Okay, continue to next month. The next agenda item is Net Zero Code Initiative.
We're going to have to continue that. We're out of time.
I apologize, but I actually have to leave as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll see you in person. The COVID should be done by next month. Bye.
Hope you feel better.
No, I feel fine. Just sad. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Lost her dog.
Is there any other agenda items that you just want to continue to next meeting? Can bundle them all and vote them for the next meeting?
I don't know how this works, Chris, but you can help me out. I feel like we haven't had a chance to really hear Mary talk about her energy efficiency idea. And is there a way you can move that to the beginning of a meeting so we for sure hear it?
Sure. The reason why it was at the end of the meeting is new business, and I'm trying to encourage the old business to be closed before new business is taken up. So that is the thinking behind having the new business at the end of the agenda item. But you can always take things out of order. You can always vote to take things out of order.
Okay. Yeah, let's
Okay.
make sure that happens.
All right. So we're continuing energy efficiency?
Yeah.
So the remaining agenda items are Net Zero Code Initiative, Lowell High School Subcommittee Report, Energy Efficiency, and new business and upcoming events from Sustainability Council members. So which of those do you want to discuss tonight, if any?
I think the energy efficiency we should talk about tonight.
That's fine with me.
Okay, so do I have a motion to continue Net Zero, the Lowell High School Subcommittee Report, and the well, new business isn't really an item that you can continue to. So the Net Zero and Lowell High School continue to the next. Do I have a motion to do that?
So-
Jay, second. Wynn, all in favor? All opposed? All abstain? Passes. All of those are continued. The next item is energy efficiency.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm gonna brief. I'm going to share my screen, and let's see. So I just wanted to share something very brief. We are in the last leg of the energy efficiency planning session, and just wanted to share some few things about Lowell. So in 2018, the city of Lowell presented a proposal to the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council. The city wanted to be their own program administrator. That did not pass. But some of the statistics that they brought out there were really they were really important. I mean, like the poverty rate in Lowell is nearly twice the rate in Massachusetts. So we are 37% lower than per capita income in Massachusetts. So basically, residents born out of the US, 68% higher in Lowell. And I'm going somewhere with these stats. So the other side of the statistics were the housing characteristics of the city of Lowell, where more than 50%, the percent of residents who rent in Lowell are more than 50% higher than in Massachusetts. We have more multifamily homes of 5 or more units. So what I'm trying to paint is a picture of why Lowell, the city of Lowell, needs to think very seriously about energy efficiency. So this is an energy burden map. The darker red are the, like where you have darker places like Pawtucketville, Centralville, areas of Lowell which people are like really energy burdened. So that this is the state of our city. So the state had a non-participant study result. Hello?
Yep, yeah, keep going.
So I've tried to show you how does Lowell look like, who lives there in terms of energy efficiency. And then these are the results of the state's non-participant study that was done to determine, to try and find out who has not been participating. So renters, moderate income, language isolated, small businesses, and nonprofits. Basically, the non-participant study described the city of Lowell as far as energy efficiency is concerned. So then I wanted to talk about, just to show, this is a highlight of, I'm trying to just create a picture. So the next generation climate bill demands that the state have a GHG reduction goal. So the GHG reduction goal for the 2022 to 2024 energy efficiency plan is 504,955 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And the emissions reductions for utility program administrators is 335,588. Basically, we have a state plan on how to reduce carbon, and most of it, the state has planned that it will be through energy efficiency. So what does that mean for us here in Lowell? Is that, you know, energy efficiency is key to reducing emissions. So I just wanted to, you know, bring out this issue that, you know, the city really needs to seek out opportunities to work with the utility companies and others, you know, maybe think about an ordinance that will incentivize landlords to implement energy efficiency measures. Maybe the city needs to think about an opt-in net zero stretch code. The reality is that Massachusetts is quickly heading towards decarbonization. And I've been sitting in meetings where this transition is being planned for the entire state. And what's going to happen is that the poor may be left paying for a gas infrastructure that they cannot afford. So I just wanted to share those things, and just as an idea, I'm not so sure what we can do at the lower sustainability council level, but there is some work to do. Thank you.
Turn your microphone. Oh, this is eye-opening, and I think that there's a lot we can do in terms of taking advantage of the state efficiency plan dollars that, you know, the city can sort of, but I think it's gonna take a lot of planning and work on the city's part for what's realistic, for us to recommend that the council do. So things like the opt-in stretch code, we can research all of those different mechanisms for energy efficiency and make recommendations and research them, you know, as a council, and then sort of do the work for the city council, and then make our recommendations based on the research that we've done. So that's kind of how I see us fitting into that. I think this is a huge subcommittee that is gonna take a really big part of the time of the council, because but I do think that that's where we'll see the most reward and the most impact of our work.
Is there currently a subcommittee for something specifically kind of like this within the city council? Or is that just with Drinkwater and, no, there isn't anything that
We
exists?
don't have an environmental subcommittee anymore.
I think that's the utility.
Yeah.
So, Mary, one of the things that you mentioned is the municipal partnership with the utility company. So I think I need to, I'm gonna research that a little bit more, but I kind of think that that might be our first step to sort of strive for, let's do that. Let's partner with National Grid as a municipality and get those benefits to the residents of our city. I think that we'll need to work with the energy manager on this, with Catherine Moses and probably with Christine McCall, but I think that should be a huge priority for this council.
Well, I mean, sorry, did you want to go ahead? I was just gonna say, really great presentation, and it was, I think that this style of presentation, if there was an ask at the end of it for, like, the city council, like, you know, can they create a subcommittee to really be focusing on this to get ahead of it before since we're already kind of behind? You know, something along those lines. I mean, I think that this is, I don't know how many presentations we want to, you know, decide we're going to do to the city council, but I mean, it sounds like, you know, this one, it could be sort of scheduled, and we could kind of create a rough schedule for presentations that we would be making to the city council. I don't know if it would be bombarding them too much or what, but, I mean, something like this is, you know, I think would be very valuable to be presented to the city council, you know, in general, not just to a subcommittee, you know, so that they can all hear it, and, you know, some of them might be able to decide, hey, that, you know, that looks exciting, that looks like something that, you know, I want to get behind as a city councilor, because, you know, it'll get them votes the next year, I don't know, whatever motivates them. But I don't know, what does the rest of the council think?
Well, I wanted to chip in and obviously relate to this hugely important activity, this idea, because, you know, we're making horrible progress. We've converted something like 462 systems out of our goal of 100,000 for this first year in getting electrified. we've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of oil-fired systems here in the city. There's perhaps some way that we can help promote an ordinance for incentivizing, like, finding dollars in the federal, what's it called? The federal plan that's coming out, the $1.2 trillion.
Infrastructure bill.
Yeah, there may be some dollars there that we could go after as a city, as a gateway city, because we're a gateway city, and get some help, because if we can give landlords $1,000 to help convert from oil or gas to electric, that might make the difference in some cases. We've got to start somewhere.
I read the Somerville Energy Plan that you had us read. I can't remember the name of it. And it was something very intriguing in there. Somerville has registered all rental units. And when a rental unit changes over, they go in and they do a complete energy audit of it. And then what's very clever is they make this information public so that renters go to this information and say, who is the most energy efficient of these particular apartments? So there's an economic incentive for the landlord to actually put the stuff in. So there's an idea.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing, but I think that funding needs to be available for the city to hire people to do these things, because just personal experience, I don't think that the inspection office for the city even has the bandwidth to inspect the
No,
buildings
they
that
would-
exist for like bare
they-
minimum.
They would have to probably double their manpower.
More than that.
Double their manpower to keep up with what they currently
Yeah.
have.
Yes.
Um,
So, Mary, what would you have us do?
So I work in affordable housing in Boston, and usually we actually pay for each unit. So it's like the city of Boston makes the landlord pay for the inspection of the unit. So it's not very popular, but it's happening. But I think the most basic place to start is just for the city to get involved in the municipal partnership program with National Grid. And I'm well connected to National Grid. I know people who work there who are doing this work. So if somebody needs to talk to somebody there, but there is a municipal program. Lawrence participated in last year's program. Other cities have participated, and I think it's time Lowell turned its attention to that program.
Yeah, this sounds like this could be something, I mean, is it Energy Save? Is that the National Grid program? Mass Save, sorry. Mass Save.
It's massive.
Right. So Mass Save kind of has the infrastructure manpower doing these audits on homes currently, right? So
Yes.
that seems like that would be the most easy form for a city like Lowell that is understaffed to just outsource it to actually get it moving.
Mass Save does virtual audits now.
Right, but as
Yes.
far as that whole sort of what she was referring to, but yeah,
So you don't need, I mean, you need Mass Save manpower, but you don't need any manpower in Lowell to do audits.
yeah.
No, you actually do need someone in Lowell to concentrate on, to get, you do need someone to think about energy efficiency at the city level. I mean, I don't think that the city has an energy manager. So I suppose that is something that they can do.
So can I take a moment, because I did check with Catherine Moses, the energy manager, on our history with the municipal partnership program. We have participated in the past. We have not recently participated, basically due to staff capacity. So that doesn't mean that a recommendation might go a long way in reprioritizing, but also that might mean some other program that's important to the Sustainability Council then gets uncapacitized, unless the request is to find more staff to do that as well. So I just wanted to put that out there, because there is some history there, and I'm sure we could have the energy manager as a guest speaker or something if necessary.
So if I may add one thing, the state of Massachusetts has specifically I've been co-chairing the Energy Equity Working Group. We have tried to design these programs so that cities that like Lowell that have been underserved in the past can be really well served in 2022 to 2024. So the past, not as good a plan as what's going on right now. We have a lot of money for heat pumps, a lot of incentives for insulation and weatherization. So if I were the city of Lowell, I would be very, very committed to trying to get some of this money. It's out there and it's for this work.
So spending a small amount of money to hire an energy efficiency manager to work under the energy manager, say, I don't know, 70,000 or something like that, could get us like millions of dollars for, millions of dollars for renters, for building improvements of multi-units and apartment complexes. That would lead to increased property values, increased property taxes, increased revenue for the city, period.
Sold.
I think we're on to some good ideas here. I do want to let people know it's almost 8:30, so I want to be respectful of people's times. I'm happy to stay and continue to discuss this topic if there's more discussion.
I think the question now is, what do we do with this? And I would suggest to keep this as an item on the agenda and create a really robust subcommittee that commits time to working on this.
So, just on the, again, kind of the idea of keeping elements on the agenda, we're basically continuing almost every item and adding more items to the agenda next month. I don't know if both the Energy Efficiency Committee subcommittee and the subcommittee that is working on heat islands and the subcommittee, or the whole that's working on filling in the thing, will all be able to present at the next meeting. So I wonder if everybody works on it, and then whoever is done has an agenda item, but if they aren't done and ready to present, then that can be at the next meeting.
And you're definitely not obligated to present at the next meeting. You know, just that, you know, it's not like pressured to have to present something, you know.
So how about informally, we meet before the next meeting on energy efficiency in some way? Whoever wants to participate, can we do that?
Absolutely, as long as it's not more than 5 members. And if it's more than 5 members, I'm happy to set up a subcommittee
Okay.
for it.
All right, cool. Once, so we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, you want to be careful about that, because with open meeting law, if, like, let's say 3 people meet and then they meet with other people and they say what they're doing, it's kind of like a game of telephone and it counts.
Okay.
I don't think we need to be this strict about that type of thing, but be careful about stuff like that. And I'm really happy to do a subcommittee meeting that's more formal. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this room because it doesn't need to be televised, but just let me know.
All right, thank you.
Who's on the energy subcommittee for energy efficiency?
Me.
Michaela?
I don't wanna take a spot if. somebody
Okay,
else
so it's
wants.
just the three of us.
Oh,
Oh, Mary, of course.
I can be on that as well. I don't know if somebody else is,
Well, you would make 5.
right, 5 is the max.
5 is a core, oh, is it 5 plus 1? Yeah.
Okay, I'll step out.
It's good to have the enthusiasm now.
Just an idea, I'm not on the subcommittee, but I know that over the past year, a couple years, UMass Lowell received a grant from DOER to do this like comprehensive assessment of all of the campus facilities, and they had graduate researchers who are part of the Department of Engineering. So if you think that it will take a lot of people power to get this going, students who are researching are engaged in the whole environmental engineering department at UMass Lowell could be, they're looking for projects for students within the city under the new RIST Institute that's being developed there, and this seems like it would be a great opportunity to have students taking what they're learning and applying it and giving back expertise from the university to the city. So just an idea for who you might want to reach out to.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'd be a great idea, because we will need, I think, a lot of people.
I think I would mention it to the youth engaged in climate change action group that was established through the LEADS program that I talked about before. That program's getting going this fall. We've got interns coming, advertising for 2 interns in September. So that'll kick off sometime in September, and there's plenty of great ideas here for them to do some cultivating.
I mean, it's very exciting that there's a bunch of support from the state level to be doing this kind of stuff, so.
2022.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
So is the motion to continue this to the next item, or to close it and then bring it up again as a new agenda item when you're ready?
Do that.
The second one?
Yep.
Okay, do I have a vote to close this item for now? A motion, sorry. Michaela, motion. Jay seconds. All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Okay, so that one will come up again when you guys are ready. New business, is there any other final things that people want to say before the meeting is over?
Steve?
Steve?
I have a question about something that Carmack mentioned earlier. Is that appropriate to
Sure.
ask? Carmack, you said that there was, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You seemed to indicate earlier that there was some discussion between either this committee or yourself and LRTA on bus electrification. Are there notes from, is there some kind of public document or something that people could see to be informed as to what the nature of those discussions were, or?
So it was just between myself and the LRTA, and so it's.
So it
just
was informal?
Informal, yeah, and so, and phone calls. And so, we're waiting on results, or I'm waiting on results from the contractors that are, figuring out how all the buses would be incorporated and how the purchase of electric buses would go in Massachusetts. So there's not really formal information to sort of disclose yet. I don't have any great information yet, at least.
Right, okay.
And there's really nothing that we can do at this point. Like,
What-
good work is being done from the LRTA side, it'd be, you know,
Well, that's sort of part of the problem is communication. So, for instance, I'm a member of the Regional Transportation Authority Advocacy Group, which is a statewide group advocating for support of the various RTAs. And it would be very helpful to know what kind of discussions along those lines are happening. So the LRTA, well, it's opaque, shall we say?
it's not, I mean, it's not that opaque as far as like,
Well, it is, but, okay, go ahead.
I mean, when I get information from Ally at the LRTA, as far as the results of the work that was done by the contract company, then that'll be actual information that's exciting to hear as far as like what the plan is. So there'll be like an actual plan, but it's,
I understand, but some people feel that there should be at least some public participation in this planning process.
I'm not part of the planning process.
Right, so that's why
Right.
I'm asking, like,
Yeah. I mean, how do you expect that to happen? I mean, it's like, we're not writing the checks for the,
no, I understand
Buses.
that, but, you know, there are strategic plans, there are multi-year plans that are drawn up, that the various RTAs develop and adhere to. And the public is supposed to be part of that planning process. So that's all I'm saying is that trying to get information as to how this process is proceeding, not just with LRTA, but
Yeah.
across the board with the various
Yeah.
15 different regional transportation authority
Yeah.
bodies, is not easy.
So they're not inviting public comment as part of their budgeting process,
At
and
this-
that's frustrating.
Right, it
because-
tends to be presented fait
Yeah.
accompli. And
The-
that's what I'm asking here.
The LRTA board is a public body, so at least those meetings are open to the public. But I don't have any more information than that.
So your best bet, our best bet might be to go to one of those LRTA board meetings and
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've tried that, Steve. Maybe you have.
Well, I have not, but I do attend regular meetings where there is, you know, representatives officially representing the RTAs, not specifically LRTA, but the RTAs in general. So, I guess my point is, I mean, the city of Lowell has a seat on the board of LRTA, and I'm just asking for what I'm hoping for is a little more transparency
From who?
from either the city's representative on the board as to
Okay.
what's happening,
Yeah.
or from the LRTA board itself.
Uh-huh.
I'm just,
Yeah.
Stephen, I was involved in this a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and we met with Jim Scanlon through our city's representative, Phil Shea. I don't know if Phil Shea is still the representative or not, but we had some important discussions, but I don't want to drag the whole
yes, yeah.
group through this. I'm happy to talk about it after the meeting and tell you what I know, if that makes sense. But if there's any other council business, can we,
Thank you.
sure, can we kind of finalize and wrap up?
Any other comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Michaela, seconded by Wynn. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Participants.
Bye,
You guys
thank
were
you all.
great.
Thank you.